Jake Morrison looked out the big window at the two suns shining on the space station. The suns were orange and yellow, making everything glow like fire. He had been on Horizon's Edge station for 6 months now, and he still thought the view was amazing. The station was huge, bigger than any building back on Earth. It floated in space between 2 planets, far from any sun system that humans knew well. 12 different alien races worked here together. They were all trying to build something that could send messages across the whole galaxy in just seconds. Jake was the security commander, but there was not much security work to do. The station had rules that no one could bring weapons. Everyone was supposed to be peaceful. The aliens had been peaceful for thousands of years. They did not fight wars like humans did. Down in the main lab, Dr. Elena Rodriguez was talking to a group of aliens about her research. Elena studied how different alien bodies worked. She was one of only 5 humans on the station. The other workers were all aliens from different worlds. The aliens listening to Elena were very different from humans. The Altarians looked like they were made of living crystal. Their skin was clear and hard, and light moved through their bodies like water. They were very tall and thin, much taller than humans. They moved slowly and spoke in voices that sounded like music. The Zephyrians looked like giant insects. They had big compound eyes that could see in all directions at once. Their bodies were covered in hard shells that were green and blue. They had 6 arms and could work on many things at the same time. They were very good at building machines. The Voidborn were the strangest of all. They looked like ghosts made of light. Sometimes you could see through them completely. Sometimes they looked solid. They could float in the air and did not need to breathe. They came from a world with no gravity and no air. Elena was showing them pictures of human bones and muscles. The aliens looked at the pictures with interest, but Jake could tell they thought humans were strange. To them, humans came from a death world. Earth was very different from their home planets. Earth had heavy gravity that made everything weigh 3 times more than normal. The air had oxygen that could burn things. The weather changed from hot to cold quickly. Animals and plants on Earth had to fight each other to survive. Most alien worlds were gentle places. The gravity was light. The weather never changed much. There were no big predators that hunted other animals. Food grew easily everywhere. The aliens had evolved to be peaceful and smart, but not strong or fast. Jake walked down to the lab to check on Elena. As he walked through the halls, he saw aliens from different worlds working together. They were all very polite to each other. They never raised their voices or got angry. They solved problems by talking for hours until everyone agreed. This was very different from human behavior. Humans could get angry quickly. They could make fast decisions when they needed to. They could fight when they had to. The aliens thought this made humans dangerous and unpredictable. Elena finished her presentation and walked over to Jake. She looked tired but happy. "How did it go?" Jake asked. "Good, I think," Elena said. "They are very interested in how human bodies work. They cannot understand how we can be so strong when we are smaller than most of them." Jake smiled. "Did you tell them about the gravity on Earth?" "Yes, but I do not think they really understand. Their homeworlds have gravity that is so light that they can jump 20 feet in the air. They think Earth gravity would crush them." "It probably would," Jake said. "Have you eaten today?" "Not yet. I was too busy preparing for the presentation." They walked to the food area together. The station had food from many different worlds. Most of it was very bland because alien taste was different from human taste. Many aliens could not eat spicy or salty foods. Their bodies were not used to strong flavors. Jake and Elena sat at a table near a group of Zephyrian scientists. The insects were clicking and buzzing to each other in their language. They seemed excited about something. "What do you think they are talking about?" Elena asked. "Probably the quantum communicator project," Jake said. "Everyone is excited about it. If it works, we can send messages to Earth instantly instead of waiting months." Elena nodded. "It would change everything. Trade, diplomacy, science, everything would happen much faster." As they ate, Jake noticed something strange. The lights in the station seemed to flicker for just a moment. It was so quick that he almost missed it. He looked around, but no one else seemed to notice. "Did you see that?" he asked Elena. "See what?" The lights flickered. Elena looked up at the ceiling. "I do not see anything wrong. Maybe it was just a small power fluctuation." Jake nodded, but something felt wrong. In his 6 months on the station, the power had never flickered even once. The alien technology was supposed to be perfect. They had solved most of the problems that still bothered human engineers. After they finished eating, Jake decided to check the security systems. He went to his office and looked at the screens that showed different parts of the station. Everything looked normal. All the aliens were working quietly at their jobs. The hallways were empty except for a few maintenance robots. But Jake could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. It was not anything he could see or hear. It was more like an instinct, the kind of feeling that had kept his ancestors alive on the dangerous world called Earth. On Earth, humans had learned to sense danger before they could see it. They could feel when a predator was watching them. They could tell when something was not right in their environment. This ability had kept the human race alive for millions of years. The aliens did not have this ability. They had never needed it. Their worlds were safe. They had never been hunted by creatures that wanted to kill them. They had never had to develop the sharp instincts that humans had. Jake decided to do a full security check of the station. He knew the aliens would think he was being paranoid, but he did not care. It was better to be safe than sorry. As he started his security rounds, the lights flickered again. This time they stayed dim for almost a full second before coming back to normal brightness. Jake grabbed his emergency radio and called Elena. "Something is definitely wrong," he said. "The power systems are acting strange. Should I be worried?" Elena asked. "Just stay alert," Jake said, "and stay near other people. I'm going to check the outer sections of the station." Jake did not know it yet, but something ancient and hungry was already inside the station, something that had been waiting in the darkness between stars for a very long time. The peaceful research station was about to become a hunting ground. The lights went out completely. One moment the research station was bright and full of activity, and the next moment everything was dark. Emergency lights came on, making everything look red and scary. Alarm sounds started going off all through the station. Elena was still in the main lab when the power died. She heard the aliens around her making sounds of fear and confusion. The Altarians made high-pitched musical sounds when they were scared. The Zephyrians started clicking rapidly with their mouths. The Voidborn just became more transparent, like they were trying to disappear. "Everyone stay calm," Elena said, but she could barely see anything in the red emergency light. She felt around for her emergency flashlight. All the humans on the station carried them, but the aliens did not. The aliens trusted their technology to never fail. Jake was in the outer section of the station when the lights went out. He immediately switched on his flashlight and pulled out his emergency radio. "Elena, are you okay?" he called. "I am fine," Elena's voice came back. "But the aliens are panicking. Their environmental suits are losing power." This was very bad news. Most aliens could not breathe the station's air for very long. They needed their suits to filter the oxygen and adjust the pressure. Without power, their suits would stop working in less than an hour. Jake started running back toward the main section of the station. As he ran through the dark hallways, he heard something that made his blood turn cold. It was a sound like metal being torn apart, followed by a scream that was cut off suddenly. "Elena," he called on the radio. "Get everyone into the emergency shelter now." "What is happening?" Elena asked. "I do not know yet, but something is very wrong." Jake reached the main lab area and saw chaos. Aliens were running in all directions, bumping into each other in the dark. Their emergency lights were much weaker than human lights, and many of them could not see well in the red glow. But Jake could see something else. There were black stains on the walls that had not been there before, and there was a smell in the air, like burnt metal and something else that he could not identify. "This way," Jake shouted to the aliens. "Follow my voice to the emergency shelter." He started leading them down the hallway, but then he heard another sound that made him stop. It was like footsteps, but wrong somehow. Too heavy and too slow, with a dragging sound between each step. Elena appeared beside him with her own flashlight. "Jake, look at this," she whispered. She pointed her light at the floor. There were marks in the metal like something with claws had walked across it. "What could make marks like that?" Elena asked. Jake did not answer because he saw something moving in the darkness ahead of them. It was big, much bigger than any of the aliens on the station. It moved strangely, not like any animal Jake had ever seen. "Get behind me," Jake whispered to Elena, "and turn off your light." Elena switched off her flashlight, and they stood in the red emergency lighting. The thing in the darkness stopped moving. Jake could see its outline now. It was at least 9 feet tall and covered in something that looked like black armor. It had long arms that ended in sharp points. One of the Altarian scientists saw the creature and made a loud musical sound of terror. The creature turned toward the sound immediately. It moved fast, much faster than something that big should be able to move. Jake watched in horror as the creature reached the Altarian. The alien tried to run, but his legs were too long and thin for quick movement. The creature caught him easily. There was a terrible cracking sound like glass breaking, and the Altarian fell to the ground and did not move. "Run!" Jake shouted to all the aliens. "Everyone run to the emergency shelter now." The aliens did not need to be told twice. They scattered in all directions, making frightened sounds, but they were not fast enough. The creature seemed to enjoy chasing them. It caught a Zephyrian next, crushing the insect's hard shell like it was made of paper. Elena grabbed Jake's arm. "We have to help them," she said. "With what?" Jake asked. "We do not have any weapons. The station rules forbid weapons of any kind." But Jake was already thinking like a human from Earth. Humans had survived for millions of years without claws or fangs or armor. They had survived by using their brains and making tools from whatever they could find. Jake looked around the lab. There were tools here, not weapons, but tools that could be turned into weapons. There was a plasma torch for cutting metal. There were heavy wrenches. There were chemicals that could burn or explode. "Elena, get to the emergency shelter," Jake said. "Make sure the survivors are safe." "What are you going to do?" Elena asked. "What humans do," Jake said. "I am going to fight back." The creature had caught another alien, one of the Voidborn. Jake watched as the ghost-like being was somehow pulled into solid form and then crushed. The creature seemed to be able to drain energy from living things. Jake grabbed the plasma torch and turned it on. The blue flame lit up the area around him. The creature noticed the light and turned toward him. For the first time, Jake could see it clearly. It was like nothing he had ever seen before. The black armor was actually its skin, hard and shiny like metal. Its eyes were red and glowed in the dark. Its mouth was full of teeth that looked like knives. But worst of all, Jake could see intelligence in those red eyes. This was not just a wild animal. It was a thinking creature that chose to kill. The creature made a sound like metal scraping against stone. It might have been trying to communicate, or it might have been laughing. It started walking toward Jake slowly, like it was not worried about the plasma torch. Jake backed away, keeping the torch pointed at the creature. His mind was racing, trying to think of a plan. The creature was bigger and stronger than him, and it seemed to have some kind of energy-draining power. But it had made one mistake. It had underestimated what a human could do when cornered. Humans were not the biggest or strongest creatures on Earth. They were not the fastest or the most dangerous. But they had one advantage that had made them the dominant species on their world. They could think their way out of almost any problem. Jake led the creature away from the other survivors, deeper into the station. He was not running away. He was leading it into a trap. Because while the creature might be a perfect predator, it had never hunted anything like a human before. Elena made it to the emergency shelter with the surviving aliens. There were only 8 aliens left out of the 20 who had been in the lab. They were all terrified and shaking. Some of them were injured. "What was that thing?" asked Dr. Kethtar, the Voidborn scientist who had survived. "I do not know," Elena said. "But Jake is going to stop it." "That is impossible," said Zekhai, one of the Zephyrian engineers. "The creature is an apex predator. No rational being would fight it directly." Elena smiled grimly. "You still do not understand humans, do you? We are not rational when our pack is threatened. We become something else entirely." Outside the shelter, they could hear sounds of fighting, metal crashing, electrical sparks, and sometimes the terrible scraping sound the creature made. But they also heard something else. They heard Jake Morrison doing what humans had done for millions of years. They heard him refusing to give up. Jake led the creature through the dark hallways of the station. He kept the plasma torch in front of him, but he was not really using it as a weapon. He was using it as bait. Every time the creature got too close, Jake would wave the bright flame, and the creature would hesitate for a moment. Jake was learning about his enemy. The creature was fast and strong, but it was also careful. It did not want to be hurt, even though it seemed almost impossible to hurt. This meant it could feel pain, and if it could feel pain, Jake could find a way to stop it. The creature was also hunting like a cat hunts a mouse. It was not trying to kill Jake quickly. It was playing with him, enjoying the fear. But Jake was not afraid anymore. He was angry, and that was very different. Human anger was something the galaxy had never seen before. Other species got upset or frustrated, but they did not have the cold, burning rage that humans could feel. This rage came from millions of years of evolution on a world where everything wanted to kill you. Jake reached the maintenance section of the station. This was where all the tools and spare parts were kept. It was also where Jake could start building the weapons he needed. The creature followed him into the maintenance area. It was making that scraping sound again, like it was pleased that Jake had trapped himself in a dead-end section. But Jake was not trapped. He was exactly where he wanted to be. Jake grabbed a heavy wrench and threw it at the creature's head. The wrench bounced off the black armor without doing any damage, but it surprised the creature. Nothing had fought back before. All the other aliens had just run or tried to hide. While the creature was distracted, Jake grabbed a power cell from one of the maintenance robots. The power cells were designed to be very stable, but Jake knew that if you broke them open in the right way, they would explode. He had learned this during his engineering training on Earth. Jake also grabbed a length of metal cable and a magnetic clamp. He was building a trap, but he needed more time. He needed to make the creature angry enough to stop playing games. "Come on," Jake shouted at the creature. "Is that all you can do? Kill defenseless aliens? Try fighting something that fights back." The creature's red eyes seemed to glow brighter. It made a new sound, like a growl mixed with the screech of tearing metal. It started moving faster, no longer taking its time. Jake ran deeper into the maintenance area, setting up his trap as he went. He attached the power cell to the magnetic clamp and connected it to the metal cable. Then he hid behind a pile of spare parts and waited. The creature came around the corner, moving fast now. It saw Jake hiding and charged forward. But when it stepped on the cable, Jake triggered the magnetic clamp. The clamp attached to the creature's armored leg, and the power cell exploded. The explosion was not big enough to seriously hurt the creature, but it knocked it down and made it angry. More importantly, it damaged the armor on one leg. Jake could see that underneath the black armor, the creature had pale skin that looked softer. The creature got back up and looked at Jake with something like respect. It had never fought prey that could think ahead and set traps. This was a new experience for it, but Jake was just getting started. He grabbed another plasma torch and turned it on high power. Instead of using it as a weapon, he used it to cut through a power conduit in the wall. Sparks flew everywhere, and the lights in this section of the station went out completely. Now they were fighting in total darkness. The creature could see in the dark, but so could Jake. Humans had learned to fight at night long before they invented fire. Jake's ancestors had hunted in caves and forests where no light reached. Jake moved quietly through the maintenance area, using his knowledge of the station layout to stay ahead of the creature. He grabbed more tools and power cells, building more traps and weapons. The creature was having trouble now. It was used to hunting in open spaces where it could use its size and strength. In the narrow spaces between the maintenance equipment, its size became a disadvantage. Jake could fit through gaps that the creature had to go around. Jake set off another explosion, this time using 3 power cells connected together. The blast was bigger, and he heard the creature make a sound of pain for the first time. It was not invincible after all. Elena's voice came over the emergency radio. "Jake, are you alive?" "Still here," Jake replied quietly. "How are the survivors?" "Scared but safe. The creature left some kind of energy field around the shelter. The aliens cannot get out." This told Jake something important. The creature was not just hunting for food. It was keeping the survivors alive for some reason. Maybe it wanted to feed on their fear slowly, or maybe it had other plans for them. "Elena, I need you to do something," Jake said. "Look in the computer files for anything about creatures like this. Search for words like apex predator, energy drain, or ancient species." "I am already looking," Elena said. "Jake, I found something. There are old stories about creatures called harvesters. They are supposed to be myths, but the descriptions match what we saw." "What do the stories say?" "They say harvesters feed on life energy and fear. They are supposed to be from the dark space between galaxies. They are older than any known civilization." Jake absorbed this information while he prepared his next trap. If the creature fed on fear, then his lack of fear was probably confusing it. And if it was ancient, it might not understand modern technology very well. Jake found the main power coupling for this section of the station. It carried enough electricity to power a small city. If he could find a way to channel that power into the creature, it might actually hurt it. But first he needed to make sure Elena and the other survivors would be safe. "Elena, is there any way for you to get the aliens out of the shelter?" "Not while that energy field is active. But Jake, I found something else. According to the stories, harvesters can be reasoned with. They are intelligent, not just animals. Reasoned with how? By proving you are a worthy opponent. If you can hurt it enough, it might respect you enough to talk." Jake smiled in the darkness. He had already hurt the creature twice. Now he just needed to hurt it more. The creature was being more careful now. It had learned that Jake was dangerous. It was moving slowly through the maintenance area, checking for traps before each step. But Jake had one more advantage that the creature did not know about. He was not just fighting for himself. He was fighting for his pack, for Elena and the other survivors. And when humans fought for their pack, they became something that even apex predators learned to fear. Jake finished setting up his biggest trap yet. This one would either kill the creature or give it the fight of its very long life. Jake worked quickly in the darkness to set up his biggest trap. He had found the main electrical junction for the maintenance section. The power flowing through these cables could run the life support systems for the entire station. If he could channel that power into the creature, it would be like hitting it with lightning. But the trap was dangerous. If Jake made a mistake, he could electrocute himself or shut down the station's life support. Elena and the other survivors would die slowly in the darkness. Jake did not let himself think about failure. Humans had survived on Earth by taking calculated risks. Sometimes you had to bet everything on one chance. The creature was getting closer. Jake could hear its heavy footsteps and the scraping sound it made when it moved. It was being careful now, checking each step for traps. Jake had taught it to respect human cleverness. Jake finished connecting the power cables to a metal grating on the floor. When the creature stepped on the grating, it would complete the electrical circuit. The full power of the station's reactor would flow through the creature's body. Jake hid behind a control console and waited. His heart was beating fast, but his hands were steady. This was what millions of years of evolution had created. A human being pushed to the edge, using every advantage his species had developed. The creature appeared at the edge of the maintenance area. Its red eyes glowed in the darkness as it searched for Jake. It had learned not to charge blindly into traps. It was studying the area, looking for signs of danger. Jake stayed perfectly still. Humans were good at waiting. They could sit motionless for hours when they were hunting. The creature might be an apex predator, but it had never learned patience the way humans had. The creature took a step forward, then another. It was almost at the metal grating. Jake held his breath and prepared to activate the trap. But then something unexpected happened. The creature stopped and looked directly at Jake's hiding place. It made the scraping sound that might have been laughter. "Human," the creature said. Its voice was like metal grinding against stone, but the words were clear. "You think like a predator. This is interesting." Jake was shocked that the creature could speak, but he did not move from his hiding place. "You killed innocent people," he said. "I killed prey," the creature replied. "They were weak." "You are not weak. You are something new." The creature took another step forward. It was now standing right next to the metal grating, but not quite on it. Jake realized that the creature had figured out his trap. "I am called a harvester," the creature continued. "I have fed on thousands of species across millions of years. None have ever fought back like you do." "Then you have been picking on the wrong species," Jake said. The creature made that scraping laugh again. "Yes, I see that now. Your species evolved differently. You are predators like me." Jake was starting to understand. This creature had spent its long life hunting species that had evolved on peaceful worlds. Gentle aliens who had never needed to develop fighting instincts. The harvester had become used to easy prey, but humans were different. They came from a world where everything was trying to kill everything else. They had developed not just intelligence, but aggressive intelligence. They could think and fight at the same time. "What do you want?" Jake asked. "I want to test you," the harvester said. "I want to see how far you will go to protect your pack." The creature deliberately stepped onto the metal grating. Jake hit the switch and electrical power flowed through the circuit. Lightning filled the maintenance area. The harvester's body glowed white-hot for a moment, and it made a sound of pain that was louder than any noise Jake had ever heard. But when the electricity stopped, the harvester was still standing. Its black armor was cracked and smoking, and one of its arms hung limp at its side. But it was alive and angry. "Good," the harvester said. You hurt me. No one has hurt me in a very long time. Jake ran. He had used his best trap, and it had not been enough to kill the creature, but it had wounded it badly. The harvester was moving slower now, and it seemed to have trouble seeing out of one eye. Jake led the creature deeper into the station, toward the central hub where the quantum communication array was located. He had one more idea, but it was even more dangerous than the electrical trap. Elena's voice came over the radio again. Jake, the energy field around the shelter is weakening. I think hurting the creature disrupted its power. Good, Jake replied. Get the survivors to the escape pods. If this does not work, you need to get off the station. What are you planning? Something stupid, Jake said. Something so stupid that only a human would try it. Jake reached the central hub. The quantum communication array filled the center of the room. It was a beautiful piece of technology, covered in crystal formations that glowed with their own light. The array could bend space and time to send messages instantly across the galaxy. It could also generate enough energy to tear a hole in reality. The harvester followed Jake into the hub. It was moving much slower now, leaving a trail of strange black liquid behind it. Jake's electrical trap had done serious damage. You cannot run forever, human, the harvester said, and you cannot hurt me enough to kill me. Maybe not, Jake said, but I can hurt you enough to get your attention. Jake started working on the quantum array's control systems. He was not a scientist like Elena, but he understood enough about the technology to know how to overload it. If he pushed too much power through the crystal matrix, it would explode with the force of a small star. The explosion would destroy the station and everything on it, including Jake and the harvester. But it would also protect Elena and the other survivors if they could get to the escape pods in time. You would destroy yourself to stop me? The harvester asked. It sounded surprised. That is what humans do, Jake said. We protect our pack no matter what it costs. The harvester was quiet for a moment. You are not like the other species I have hunted. No, Jake agreed. We are not. Jake finished setting up the overload sequence. In 60 seconds, the quantum array would explode. He hoped Elena had gotten the survivors to safety, but then the harvester did something unexpected. It sat down on the floor of the hub, making itself look smaller and less threatening. Wait, the harvester said. I wish to make a bargain with you. Jake kept his hand on the overload switch. What kind of bargain? You have proven that your species is worthy of respect. You fight like a predator, but you protect like a parent. This is rare in the galaxy. Jake did not trust the creature, but he was curious about what it wanted. There are things in the dark between galaxies, the harvester continued. Ancient things that make me look small and weak. Your species will face them someday. When that happens, you will need allies who understand how to fight. The harvester looked at Jake with its damaged red eyes. I offer you knowledge in exchange for my life. The knowledge of how to fight the things that even harvesters fear. Jake thought about this offer. He could kill the harvester and himself, saving the station but learning nothing. Or he could take a chance that this ancient predator was telling the truth. It was the kind of decision that only a human would have to make. Jake kept his hand on the overload switch while he studied the wounded harvester. The creature was sitting on the floor like it was surrendering, but Jake knew better than to trust an apex predator completely. Even wounded, the harvester could probably kill him if it wanted to. You said there are worse things out there, Jake said. What kind of things? The harvester's damaged voice was quieter now, almost respectful. Things that eat entire star systems. Things that turn civilizations into food. Things that make the darkness between galaxies their hunting ground. Jake thought about this. If the harvester was telling the truth, then humanity would need every advantage it could get. But if it was lying, Jake would be letting a killer go free. How do I know you are not lying? Jake asked. Because I could have killed you many times during our fight, the harvester replied. But you impressed me. You think like a hunter, but you care like a protector. This combination is very rare. The harvester pointed to its wounded arm. You are the first being in 1,000 years to hurt me. The first to set traps that actually worked. The first to make me feel something I had forgotten. What is that? Respect for my prey. Jake heard Elena's voice on the radio. Jake, we are in the escape pods, but we are not leaving without you. Elena, stay in the pods, but do not launch yet, Jake replied. I need a few more minutes. Jake looked at the harvester again. The creature was bleeding that strange black liquid, and its armor was cracked in several places. It was hurt badly, but it was not trying to heal itself or attack. It was just waiting for Jake's decision. "If I let you live," Jake said, "what happens to the people you killed?" "They are dead," the harvester said simply. "I cannot change that, but I can promise that no harvester will hunt in this part of the galaxy again. You have proven that humans are not easy prey." Jake realized that this was bigger than just revenge for the dead aliens. This was about the future of humanity in the galaxy. If other harvesters were out there, they needed to know that humans would fight back. "What knowledge can you give me?" Jake asked. The harvester reached slowly into a pouch on its armor. It pulled out a small crystal that glowed with the same light as the quantum array. "This contains the locations of ancient weapons and defenses, things left behind by civilizations that fought the true darkness and lost." Jake looked at the crystal. It was beautiful, but he could sense power radiating from it. This was technology far beyond anything humans or the other galactic species had ever seen. "Why do you have this?" Jake asked. "Because I have been preparing for the return of the darkness for a very long time. I have been gathering weapons and allies, but I never found a species that could actually use them." The harvester stood up slowly, favoring its wounded leg. "Your species is different. You evolved in conflict. You understand that sometimes you must fight monsters to protect what you love." Jake made his decision. He turned off the overload sequence and took the crystal from the harvester. The moment he touched it, information flowed into his mind. Star charts, weapon designs, the locations of ancient battle stations that had been hidden for millions of years. "Elena," Jake called on the radio, "come back to the central hub. Bring Dr. Kethtar with you." "Are you sure it is safe?" Elena asked. "It is safe," Jake said. "But hurry. We have a lot to discuss." Elena and the Voidborn scientist arrived a few minutes later. They both stared at the wounded harvester in amazement. Dr. Kethtar's energy form flickered with fear. "This is impossible," Dr. Kethtar said. "Harvesters are myths, stories to frighten children." "I am very real," the harvester said. "But I am also very old and very tired of hunting weak prey. This human has shown me something new." Elena looked at Jake. "What did you do?" "I made a deal," Jake said. He showed her the crystal. "This contains information about threats that make the harvester look friendly. Threats that are coming whether we are ready or not." Elena took the crystal and examined it with her scientific equipment. "Jake, this is incredible. The technology encoded in here is thousands of years ahead of anything we have." The harvester watched Elena work with interest. "She is a scientist. Good. You will need scientists to understand the weapons. But more importantly, you will need warriors to use them." Jake understood what the harvester meant. Humanity was uniquely suited for this role. They had the scientific curiosity to understand advanced technology, but they also had the fighting instincts to use it effectively. "What happens now?" Jake asked. "Now you go back to your people and prepare them," the harvester said. "Tell them what you have learned. Begin building the defenses you will need." The harvester started walking toward the exit of the hub. "I will return to the darkness between galaxies. I will watch for signs of the coming threat. When it arrives, I will find you again." "Wait," Jake said. "How will we know you are telling the truth about any of this?" The harvester turned back. For the first time, Jake thought he saw something like a smile on the creature's face. "Because in 1 year, the first scouts will arrive in this galaxy. Small things, barely noticeable, but they will be testing your defenses." The harvester paused at the doorway. "When that happens, you will understand that everything I told you was true, and you will be grateful that you chose to let me live." After the harvester left, Jake and Elena sat in the quiet hub. The crystal containing the ancient knowledge glowed softly between them. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Elena asked. "I do not know," Jake said honestly, "but I know that we did the human thing. We took a risk to protect our people." Elena nodded. "The aliens are never going to understand this. They will think we are crazy for making a deal with a killer." "Maybe," Jake said, "but they will understand when the real threat arrives. And when it does, they will be grateful that humans are the kind of species that makes deals with monsters to protect their friends." 3 days later, rescue ships arrived at the station. The surviving aliens told their story to the Galactic Alliance. Most of the Alliance members did not believe the story about the harvester. They thought it was human imagination and trauma from the attack. But Jake and Elena did not care what the aliens believed. They were busy studying the crystal and preparing humanity for what was coming. They shared the information with Earth's government and with human colonies throughout the galaxy. Humanity began to change. They started building new kinds of weapons and defenses. They began training for a war that most species could not even imagine. They prepared for the day when the darkness between galaxies would come hunting. 1 year later, just as the Harvester had predicted, strange ships appeared at the edge of the galaxy. They were small and fast, and they seemed to be scanning everything they could find. The scout ships of something vast and hungry. When the alien governments detected these ships, they panicked. They had no weapons that could touch the scout ships. They had no defenses that could stop them, but humanity was ready. The weapons they had built from the Harvester's knowledge worked perfectly. The scout ships were destroyed before they could report back to whatever had sent them. The alien races looked at humanity with new eyes. They no longer saw primitive Deathworlders who were too violent for civilized society. They saw the one species in the galaxy that was prepared to fight the unthinkable. Jake Morrison became the first human to be named Supreme Commander of Galactic Defense. Elena Rodriguez became the head of the new Xenothreat Research Division. Together they began preparing the galaxy for the war they knew was coming. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, an ancient harvester watched and waited. For the first time in millions of years, it felt something it had almost forgotten: hope.